Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Miera binti Abdullahi and my matric number is 2021605554.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fatini Abu Qasim. My matrix number is 2021813902.
My name is waheeda binti Ramli. My matrix number is 2021625416. I'm from group K IMD121 from University Teknologi Mara, Cawangan, Kedah.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Aina binti Muhammad Suherman and my matrix number is 2021475362.
Non-verbal communication by Ursula Hess. In this article, the author Ursula Hess mentioned that non-verbal communication defined as an aspect, unspoken communication, and all movement is at some stage expressive. Non-verbal communication encompasses many different types of behavior, but there are some that are not considered behavior, such as facial, vocal, postural expression, and proxemics. Facial expression can be measured using descriptive coding systems such as the Ekman and Friesen Facial Action Coding System (FACS) 1978. Proxemic communication is a body language in which messages are conveyed from one person to another by the changing space that separates them during a conversation. Other than that, the choices on hair, clothing, and self-appearance and adornments such as jewelry also the behavior of nonverbal communication. There are literary works such as Darwin's seminal work on expression of emotion in humans and animals, 1872-1965, shows that emotion expression has evolved and the emotional expressive behavior of animals and humans in communicating non-verbally. Other than that, there are also studies made in the field of anthropology of kinesics, the study of body movement, Birdswhistle 1970, and proxemic, the study of personal space, Hall 1963. Nonverbal communication researchers place more emphasis on state emotions and communication such as loud voice extroversion, Searcher 1978. They focus on paralinguistic aspects such as voice and qualities and voice quality and gesture. There are another example of nonverbal communication. It is emotion expression. Emotion expression. The examples of emotion expression by raising eyebrows to communicate intentions. The meaning of raising eyebrows can be I'm surprised or something happened.
Nonverbal communication. One of the most frequently raised issues about gender differences in this article, whether there are cultural differences in the nonverbal communication of emotions. Some evidence has been suggested that emotional expressions are largely widely known when it comes to emotion classified as basics. Actually, there is other evidence stating that many emotions are not expressed in the same way, but they can be recognized either through the cultures and group. Every culture has different value systems, and the same situation can trigger different feelings depending on the culture. Based on this statement, every different culture has different value system, but at the same time, same situation can trigger a different feeling based on the culture. There are also differences in the expression and recognition of emotional expressions based on status and gender. For example, women smile more than men, even they are not in a good mood. Men are thought to be more likely to express anger. Next, emotions can be expressed in a variety of ways, which is such as eye contact, speech, posture, touch, and gaze. Based on research on static emotions, it appears that at least the most fundamental emotions may be recognized only based on posture signals, which is emotional specific postures were hardly to understand. There is some evidence that men and women have different ways of touching, but their differences are not like authority or status. For information, touch more better if one expresses feelings like anger, fear, disgust, or love. Next, direct gaze entertains additional resources by indicating that the receiver is the object of whatever emotion is being expressed. The study of these articles, such as foot tapping and face touch between two interaction partners, is known as the chameleon effect. Lastly, facial expressions provide information that is conveyed by relatively static morphological signals as well as movement behaviors such as facial expressions. The conclusion for this article is nonverbal acting is important in the expression of states such as emotions and in the development of first impressions. Nonverbal communication is said in a social environment which has an impact on how people understand the emotions. Last, this context is determined not just by appropriate cultural standards and conventions, but also by the interaction partner social group members.
The second article that we chose for our assignments is about the process of communication article written by Dr. Radhika Kapoor. The introduction of this article is to gain a thorough understanding of the communication process and is for the people who communicate with each other, including such senders and receiver, must fully comprehend each other well. It's also the procedure of information transmission and generating mutual understandings from one person to another are referred to as communication. The sender and receiver are two common features in the communication process. The message is the result of the encoding and it can take the form of verbal, non-verbal or written language. Next is meaning and significance of communication process. Communication process is the essential ways that emphasize the fact that communication is viewed as one of the significant ways of conveying knowledge and understanding to others. Individuals can obtain information in terms of a variety of factors, and it also can define as the exchange of transmission of information, ideas and points of view from one person to another person from one end to the other. It also can be identified by promoting beneficial interaction among individuals. Next is stage of communication process. Communication process is to understand in the instructor must implement the teaching learning methods in a well-organized way. First is sender. Sender is the person who communicates information to other people who could be one or more. Sender also can communicate information verbally, non-verbally or in writing. Next is message. Message is the piece of information that are sent from sender to receiver. It can be indeed be information about various subjects, concepts and people. It's also, signs and symbols are also can be used and delivery orally, non-verbally and in writing. Next is receiver. Receiver is a people who receive information and message from the sender. The receiver must pay close attention to the senders, learn to interpret the data received and convey their reaction. The receiver also can use the same platform to convey their response, or in some situations, they may be using communication mediums such as email, phone, and both. Lastly is feedback. Feedback is the return of the data about their reaction or consequences of the written or the part of the process. It also can occur when senders convey their reaction to the answers or information being obtained from the receiver. In some situations, the feedback is in positive, while in other, it will become.
There are factors of communication process. Individuals must consider these factors when communicating with one another, whether in person or over the phone. First, participants. The participants are two or even more, referred to as senders and receivers. Senders are the ones who transmit information, whereas receivers are the ones who receive it. Next, contact. Contact are made not only physically but also psychologically. Sender applies a variety of techniques to stay in contact with the receiver. Keep in touch via phone calls, messages, emails, letters when can't see each other in person. Next is context. Context must be guaranteed that the context carried out is appropriate and must emphasize the physical environmental conditions. Next is common code, a set of conventions. Both the sender and the receiver must have access to it and could be linguistic, paralinguistic or non-verbal. And next is form of message. Should have the same format determined by the circumstance, can take either a formal or informal form. And lastly, goals of communication, thought to be a goal-oriented activity related to specific topics, factors, subjects or concepts, and a language contextual function. The next topic is the model of communication process. There are a few factors to understand the model of communication process, and those are communicator, signal 1, receiver and signal 2. In this table, it is shown that signal 1 is produced by sender in productive performance and received by receiver in receptive performance, and vice versa for signal 2 produced by receiver in productive performance and signal 2 is received by sender in receptive performance. Productive performance is possession of awareness and knowledge, which means that need to be well aware before initiating a communication process, while receptive performance is paying full attention at the message produced, which means able to understand the communication process while receiving it. The conclusion of this article is the definition of communication is the process of passing information while being able to understand each other. In the communication process, the common elements are the sender and receiver. Sender is the person that conveys desire and concept to another person. The four stages of the communication process are the sender, message, receiver and feedback, while the factors are participants, context, common code, form of message, and goals of communication. When understanding the model of communication process, there are four factors, which is communicator, signal 1, receiver, and signal 2. By handling the factors in a well-organized manner, the communication is considered as productive and meaningful.